All right, if you're anywhere near the world of in vitro diagnostics in Europe, you know things have been completely turned upside down. Today, we're going to demystify one of the biggest reasons why, the IVDR. We'll give you a clear, step-by-step guide to getting a Class C device CE marked and out on the market.
So the European Union has made this massive shift, moving away from the old in vitro diagnostic directive, the IVDD, to the much, much stricter in vitro diagnostic regulation, or IVDR. And really, the clue is right there in the name. A directive? That was more like a strong suggestion that each country could interpret its own way. But a regulation? That's the law. It's a binding rule book that's applied exactly the same way across the entire EU. This is way more than just a name change. It's a total overhaul that raises the bar for everything: performance evidence, quality systems, you name it. Okay, so here's our game plan for today. First, we're going to get our bearings in the new IVDR landscape. Then, we'll map out the entire CE marking process step by step. We'll also decode this sometimes confusing process of notified body sampling, walk you through the transition deadlines, and then wrap up with the major challenges and takeaways. Sound good? Let's dive in.
All right, let's dive right in with the new IVDR landscape. The whole process really hinges on a new risk-based classification system. So figuring out exactly where your device fits is, without a doubt, the most critical first step. Under the IVDR, every single device gets sorted into a risk class, from A, which is the lowest risk, all the way up to D, the highest. We're zeroing in on Class C. These are devices that pose a high risk to an individual patient or maybe a moderate risk to public health. Think about those critical diagnostics, like the cardiac markers used when someone's having a suspected heart attack or certain genetic tests. It's because of that high-risk profile that these devices now need a super thorough review by an independent notified body before they can even think about hitting the market.
Okay, so we've covered the why. Now, let's get into the how. This next section is really the heart of our explainer today. It's the detailed roadmap you'll need to follow to get that all-important CE mark. So you might be wondering, what does this journey actually look like on the ground? And yeah, I know it can seem super complex at first glance, but it's actually a very logical, structured process when you break it down. Here it is, the 7 key stages. It all kicks off with building a really solid quality management system, or QMS. From there, you've got to correctly classify your device and figure out the right conformity route. Next comes the big one: preparing all your technical documentation. And a huge piece of that puzzle is the performance evaluation report. Once that's all buttoned up, you submit the whole package to your notified body, they do their review, and if everything checks out, boom, you get your certificate and you can finally put that CE mark on your product. Yeah, let's zoom in on that performance evaluation report, the PER, for a second. This is not just some other piece of paper. You've got to think of this as the absolute cornerstone of your entire submission. It's where you pull together all the evidence, and I mean all of it, that proves your device does exactly what you say it does. It has to cover scientific validity, analytical performance, and clinical performance with hard data to back up every single claim.
All right, now let's get into a topic that honestly causes a lot of headaches and confusion: notified bodies sampling. If you're a manufacturer with a big portfolio of pretty similar products, you're probably asking yourself, how on earth do they review all this stuff in practice?
I mean, it's a fair question, right? If you've got a massive portfolio, reviewing every single technical file for every little variation would be basically impossible. So, thankfully, the IVDR has a pretty smart system to handle this. The whole system works by grouping similar devices. You've got 2 key codes to know. First up are the EMDN codes. Every device needs one of these for registration in EUDAMED, that big Central European database. Think of the EMDN code as your device's public passport. Then, on the other hand, you have IBP codes. These are more like the internal filing system the notified body uses to group similar devices. We're talking same purpose, same tech, same risk, into families to make their review process manageable. And here's the bottom line, the part you really need to hear. For every single one of those generic device groups you create, the notified body has to pick at least one representative device and do a full, deep dive review of its technical documentation. So let's say you have 10 products. If you can group them all into one family, that's one deep review. But if those same 10 products are split across 3 different groups, well, now you're looking at a minimum of 3 full reviews. Your grouping strategy is absolutely critical. Okay, so how does all this theory actually play out in the real world with deadlines and ongoing work? In this next section, we're going to talk about the critical transition deadlines for products you already have on the market, plus your responsibilities after you get that CE mark. Look, if you have products on the market under the old IVDD rules, you need to have these dates circled in red on your calendar. They are not suggestions, they are hard deadlines. By May 2025, your quality management system has to be fully IVDR compliant. By May 2026, your formal application needs to be lodged with a notified body. And by September of that year, you need a signed agreement with them. If you hit those milestones, you get to keep selling your existing devices until the end of 2028.
And I really have to stress this. Getting that CE mark, that's not the finish line. In a lot of ways, it's actually the starting pistol. The IVDR puts this huge emphasis on post-market surveillance. That means you have an ongoing job to actively monitor how your device is doing out in the real world. You'll be submitting regular safety reports, reporting any incidents right away, and just constantly collecting data to make sure your device stays safe and effective for its entire life.
All right, to wrap things up, let's be real about the biggest hurdles you're probably going to face and then pull together the most important takeaways from everything we've talked about.
You know, there are really 4 big challenges you've got to keep front and center. First, the bar for clinical evidence is just so much higher now. Second, there are only so many notified bodies, which has created a major bottleneck, so you got to plan for longer wait times. Third, you have to shift your thinking. Performance evaluation is now a cycle, it's an ongoing activity, not just a one-time thing you do for submission. And finally, please do not underestimate how complex getting your device grouping strategy right and preparing those tech files can be.
So, what's the big picture here? Look, there's no sugarcoating it. IVDR compliance is tough. It's complex, it's expensive, but it is absolutely essential. It's setting a new global standard for making sure that every single diagnostic device in Europe is safe, that it works, and that it's traceable. At the end of the day, this whole thing exists for one simple reason: to protect patients and users.
So we've walked through the new landscape, we've laid out the roadmap, and we've talked about the real-world challenges. Now the final question really is for you. You know the path now. Is your organization truly prepared for the journey ahead?